Right, good morning everyone. I'm Professor Henrietta Moore and I'm the founder and director of the Institute for Global Prosperity at University College London. And I'm very delighted to welcome you all to UCL at Base KX. It's a very, very significant moment for the IGP, but also for UCL. And it's been a very long time in coming, with many, many partners working extremely hard for many years to bring this to fruition. So for those of you who haven't heard of the Institute for Global Prosperity, we are a world-leading transdisciplinary research institution at UCL with a central mission to rebuild and redefine prosperity for the 21st century. We work globally in many regions, including Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, collaborating with academics, change makers, businesses, local authorities, and citizen social scientists. And our purpose is to co-create dynamic and sustainable pathways towards quality of life, secure livelihoods, and economic and social well-being for people and the planet. Now, citizen science is a term for a wide range of activities and practices involving the public in conducting research that contributes to scientific knowledge. But citizen social science is an emerging area of citizen science that involves members of the public in research projects focused on complex questions about human behavior, about how societies are organized, for example, understanding the lived experiences of inequality and exclusion. And one key thread that underpins our work globally is the citizen social science approach and way of working, thinking about how we can incorporate local voices, the voices of citizens, residents, and communities in decision-making and policy-making processes, as well as empowering them and working with them to lead research to shape social action and place-based impact. What's very important about this academy is that the work we do will change the way that universities work. It'll change the way we formulate questions, the way we gather evidence, the way we interpret that evidence, and the way we take it forward into policy. This is probably the most significant change in what universities do since they admitted women. And that was led in the UK by UCL. And so it's appropriate that UCL should lead this initiative also. Now, the UCL Citizen Science Academy is based at the IGP, but it's been designed in partnership with UCL's Office for Open Science and UCL's cross-faculty Citizen Science Working Group in order to make participation in research, as I've said, inclusive and accessible to people from all backgrounds. Now, today's Academy launch is being co-hosted with Camden Council. The IGP has been working with the Council for 3 years on citizen science projects, and Camden have played a key role in shaping the Academy and in shaping the new Citizen Science certificate. And we have a new and innovative project with them coming up, which is all about how we can improve planning gain and involve citizen scientists in that process. So I'm very delighted that today we have Councillor Georgia Gould, who's leader of Camden Council, and Dom, who I can't see at the moment, but Dom Murphy right there, who's the Principal Participation Officer at Camden Council. And both will be speaking this morning. And I want to also thank all the other Camden colleagues present for everything that you've done to assist us in this process. Now, I'm delighted to say that UCL's President and Provost, Dr. Michael Spence, is here today, and he's going to talk about why this launch is important, not just for UCL as an organization, but why it has wider implications on how we conduct and undertake research in universities. Now, Dr. Spence joined UCL as President and Provost in January 2021, and prior to this, he was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sydney in Australia. And during that time, he embedded diversity and inclusion in the university's culture and delivered significant investment in multidisciplinary research activity, transforming strategic partnerships with industry, government, and community organizations. So let me now hand over to Michael, and he will introduce UCL.
Look, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today. Particularly thank you to Councillor Gould for being here today for what is, I think, for both of us, actually a really important moment, a really important marker. A really important marker in terms of both what government and university were designed to do, but what perhaps we haven't always got right. So UCL was founded with a very distinctive mission. It was founded not for what our founders called rather pejoratively the polite learning of Oxford and Cambridge, but for useful knowledge, to be a place that made a difference in the world. And of course, government has always been about the welfare of communities. But government, like universities, were for so long about telling people what their problems are and what they need and what they're jolly lucky that we might do to help them, right? And for a while, the universities and government did that at some arm's length. And then we talked to government about doing that in a research-informed way, by which universities meant we know even better than you what we think the problems are, what we think people need, and what they might be jolly lucky if you and we did together for them. And not surprisingly, lots of those programs weren't particularly successful. So what universities did was retreat. And in the social sciences, we became more and more interested in our own arcane methodologies, writing articles in learned journals for nobody to ever read, and certainly few people to put into practice. But it wasn't fulfilling our mission for useful knowledge. And I think there was a growing sense amongst the very best in government too, that government wasn't seeing the cut-through that it needed. And in particular, that consultation was a frustrating process of dealing with various activist interests that didn't necessarily deliver to people in community what they thought they needed or the kinds of solutions that might be effective to see results. And this Citizen Science Academy, it's the fruit of a process in both government and university social science that takes a wholly different approach. That says community is not just the unlucky or the lucky, depending upon your frame, victim of what we do, but at its best, it's community that has to be involved in with us shaping the questions, in with us thinking about the methodologies, and in with us finding solutions to the problems that we share, and to the problems that we as institutions both help to create, but also can help to solve. That is a wholly different epistemology. It is a radically different way of thinking about how universities can pursue the true, the good, and the beautiful. And it's a different way of thinking about how governments can serve the people that they serve. And we are incredibly lucky in this part of London. We think to have UCL, which is pretty special. But also to have in Camden a local government that is deeply committed to this way of working and deeply committed to bringing the community into the process. And so it is appropriate that it's here that we're launching what is actually quite a radical, and for those of you who in some way or another are peripheral to this game, you might think, well, if they didn't involve communities, what did they do? But what is quite a radical way of approaching both university learning and government. And so, Councillor Gould, it's terrific to have you here today with your colleagues from Camden, and congratulations to the IGP for this really important initiative. It will be really exciting to hear what impact it's having around the world, but also to think about how we can make it more fruitful right here on our own doorstep. So congratulations and thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Michael, for that introduction. So now we're going to have a session on what is the Citizen Science Academy. It's going to be led by Dr. Saffron Woodcraft, who is the executive lead of the Prosperity Co-Laboratory for the UK. So Saffron, please.
Good morning and thank you. I am so excited about today. So, as you can probably tell. I'm going to be joined this morning by Siobhan Bradshaw, who's a citizen social scientist working on the Good Life Houston project, which is here in Camden. by Solomon Ntaiyia, who is Chief Citizen Scientist from the Mara region in Kenya, and by Timothy Kipruto, who is Chief Citizen Scientist and Director of the Marakwet Research Station in Kenya. So really excited to have members of our citizen science community here, and they'll be talking about the work that they've been doing. But what is the Citizen Science Academy? I'm just going to start there first. So the Citizen Science Academy is a new initiative to offer community-based, practice-led research, education, training, and employment. So we are involving people from all kinds of backgrounds in citizen science that's linked directly to active research challenges. So what we want to do is give people the knowledge and skills to take part in research that's shaping social action and decisions that are directly affecting local livelihoods and local communities. We are also today launching UCL's new Citizen Science Certificate. So it's an opportunity for people who are involved in the academy programs to receive certification and recognition of the skills and competencies that they acquire. But the challenge the Citizen Science Academy, the challenge the Citizen Science Academy is tackling is much larger than delivering research training. It's about making citizen science and citizen-led research part of mainstream decision-making processes in a range of different organizations. So in local government, in central government, in the voluntary sector, and in businesses. So what we want to do is make this an everyday practice for organizations that are making decisions about places, about people, whether that's planning or investments. So we want citizen science to be not just a nice to have project, but something that is part of the knowledge ecosystem, part of the evidence that organizations use on a regular basis to make decisions. So what we're launching today builds on work that we've been doing over a number of years with a whole range of different partners. And what we've been doing in this time is thinking about how we address the challenges of embedding citizen science in everyday decision making, and thinking about what we need to do to make it sustainable. So that means thinking about not just research training and certification, but how organizations like Camden Council, like Newham Council, think about their own kind of internal decision-making processes. So what capacities do their own staff need in order to work with citizens in this different way? How do we think about the pathways that citizen scientists will pursue once they've been involved in one project or one training project? So thinking about a whole range of different issues, which are not just about training and research, but are about creating a new kind of transformational knowledge infrastructure. So I just want to echo Henrietta's point and say how grateful we are to have partners like Camden and Newham, and Hackney and Lend-Lease and the GLA, who've been willing to experiment with these different ways of working and to test these new ways of working. So the courses that we've been running so far have been relatively short, but we're working with Camden on a different kind of course that's more of a kind of apprenticeship over a 12-month period that will embed all of this work directly into council decision-making processes. So the principles of the Citizen Science Academy are that it's community-based and practice-led. So all of our programs are about applied research, addressing real-world challenges, which are co-designed with our partners. We're offering really high-quality research training and employment. So thinking about research ethics, research methods, working on co-designing analysis, but also incorporating impact training into our programs. So thinking about what happens to the research after projects and programs are finished. Inclusivity and accessibility are important, so making research processes and participation accessible to a wide range of people from all kinds of different backgrounds. And this is really important because it means we need to work as a university in a different way with voluntary sector and community sector partners to make sure that we're inviting into the programs people who might not normally participate in participatory research or in university-led initiatives. Collaboration, so we collaborate both in terms of designing the programs because they're linked to real world issues, thinking about where we work, thinking about how to design the programs. So citizen scientists are working directly and collaborating directly with policymakers and decision makers through the training and the research. So those direct links to decisions and policy and capacity building, thinking about how we build the capacity of all of these different stakeholders to work together is a really crucial part of the Academy's work and is really critical when we are thinking about that kind of transformational knowledge infrastructure that we're trying to build. So what does Academy training involve? We have been working with colleagues across UCL to think about the key kind of research competencies and skills that we need to offer through this program. So all of the programs that we run incorporate elements of understanding the research process, knowledge of research and of different citizen science approaches, acting as a competent researcher, thinking about communication and collaboration. So what's the life of the research beyond the project? How do we think about research impact? So all programs involve those core domains. And then because we work on a whole range of different research questions and challenges, different programs rely on different research methods. So you'll hear this morning from citizen scientists who are working on very different challenges in very different ways. So the programs that we design are always specific to the particular research challenge. So the methods and techniques are varied. And then lastly, working in a team, because collaboration both among the citizen scientists, but also with our policy partners is so critical. So what does this look like in practice? So we have a very large citizen science team in Tanzania who sadly were not able to join us today, but you can see them at work here. So we've been working with them for 4 years in a number of different training programs, from kind of qualitative exploration of what it means to live a good life in an unplanned settlement to the latest training program, which is about household survey techniques. So you can see the team here in the field starting their household survey of over 1,000 different households in 3 different settlements in Dar es Salaam. So what the Academy is about changing how decision makers think and act. So what we want to do is create new and sustainable ways of working that put citizens in control of telling their own stories, of contributing to the evidence that shapes how decisions are made, maintaining partnerships and connections beyond the life of individual training programs, and making sure that we as the Academy create opportunities for citizen scientists to own their research, present their research in lots of different forums. So what you can see here is a zine, a mini magazine produced by Lorraine, who's going to be speaking in a moment, part of our longitudinal study about prosperity in East London. And Lorraine has been leading, and this is a picture of Lorraine leading a kind of walk with a team of officers from Hackney Council. So to talk about the findings of that research and think about how it can be incorporated in different aspects of regeneration planning. So thank you. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Siobhan Bradshaw, and she's going to talk a bit about the work that's been going on in Camden.
Hi, my name is Siobhan Bradshaw, and I'm an artist and a photographer and have lived in Somerstown for about 23 years. I'm very proud to be part of the Euston Voices. We were a team of 2 groups. First of all, there was the youth group, and if you could just change, sorry, to the next one, I just want to show you the youth. and they were the first group, and they were trained by IGP in the summer of 2020, and the adult group came later at the end of the year. And following that, in the May, all of that research from both groups, we came together and we co-designed the data and the model that will get measured. And what was really inspiring was my team, that we were all committed to our neighborhood of Somerstown and Regent's Park, which has been greatly impacted by HS2, as we know. And what is unique about Somerstown is it is surrounded by knowledge, and one of my beliefs is that the residents have access to that knowledge. So it's with great pleasure I've been part of this project, and we were using photography as a way of it inspiring conversation. We were going into a community and asking, what is the good life? What does it mean to you? And this was really important because it's the community actually answering what the good life means to them and what hinders that. And I really hope that, because I've been part of much community research in Somerstown, and I can honestly say that nothing touches upon this type of research. And Camden Council has been continuing this. They have done the Camden Festival, What Matters, at Central St. Martin's in November last year. They're doing a Good Life Camden. Oh, and I just want to say that I have been continuing trying to put in practice everything that I have learned. And I had an event which was made at a space called the Make Space, which was created by Central St. Martin's for the community of Somerstown. And I made laser cuts there at the Make Space. I exhibited at Somers Gallery, which is in Somerstown, and I collaborated with a music teacher, Yusef, and the music students from Camden schools learned about the jazz legends that were in my exhibition, and they came on Saturday and they played their own interpretations, and it was an amazing event, and I'm very proud because that was my way of putting together the community, the arts, the music, food, and the different ages, because I believe in one of the things that I was told by one of the PhD students here was that I was a good connector, that I was good at connecting people and mixing people, and that is what I believe in. I believe in mixing age, culture, everything, because we can all learn from each other. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So I'd like to welcome Solomon now, who's going to talk to us about some of the work going on in Kenya.
Thank you so much, Saffron. Hi, everyone. My name is Solomon Ntaiyia, and I come from Kenya, the southern part of the Rift Valley. Together with me, I'm going to show you a region where, together with my colleague from Kenya who will speak after me, our area of operation is in 8 counties, ranging from West Pokot, just down the Cherangani Hills, Elgeyo Marakwet, all the way down to Narok, at the border of Kenya and Tanzania. So we were trying to understand what prosperity is, and we used a model that relates with the community, relates the community to what prosperity means to them, and we used a model where all the communities, all the participants will come in and tell us what does prosperity mean to them. And we will give them a session to discuss and write down what prosperity means to each individual. And that way we will put them by order of priority. You know, the more the stickers, that means the higher the priority. And so through doing the same, the communities will feel more engaged in deciding on what government or the policy formulators will offer to them. You know, it's not like you'll give me a dam if I needed a school, or you give me construct a toilet for this community that needs water. You know, so the priorities matter. So we use the model that everyone relates with. What does prosperity mean to you? And just like to all of us, what does prosperity really means to us? Is it, and do we get that from the policy formulation within our governments and institutions? So the symbol you see there, this is the first image there was a participation process. Because if you have to understand something, it's easier at having an image to look at and relate with. So in the first symbol there, you can see a head with a neck, and that means someone in the participants, amongst the participants, said the symbol that relates with what he thinks about prosperity is the head and the neck. And after we had identified the key issues, they'll say the head represents the community, the ears will represent something else, roads, infrastructure, education, and so on. But then someone else will suggest and say, we will use the whole human body to represent the community, and the parts of the body to represent the needs by priority. And then again, someone came up with a gourd, a milk gourd, this, what you see down there. And in this region, we work with two communities, the Maasai community and the Kalenjin community. So at the end of the day, they both came with symbols that symbolize what prosperity means to them and what part of that symbol means what. So in the first image is a shield. And in the Maasai community, they have that shield. You know, when the warriors go to war, they have the shield. And that shield is segmented into different regions. And they will point to part of it to represent one of the key issues. So the bigger it is, the bigger the part of the shield that it occupies, that means the higher the priority. So the Maasai community came with the shield, with all the key issues, and the Kalenjin community came with the milk gourd. But amazingly, at the bottom of the gourd is where all, if the gourd sits on unstable base, that means it can fall down and break. And that's leadership. So putting a lot of focus on the kind of leaders that we elect, if they are unstable, then that means we are going to fall down anytime and break the whole community. So we came up with 2 words, Dupoto, meaning prosperity in the Maasai community, and Sobet Nenyolu, meaning prosperity in the Kalenjin community. And amazingly, with the two symbols, if you swap them, each community can still relate with. So, and that is what prosperity means to us. Thank you.
So this is a very similar process to the research methodology that Siobhan was just discussing. Before we end this session, I'd like to invite Timothy Kipruto to talk about a very different kind of research, citizen science project that's going on in Kenya.
Thank you. I'm Timothy Kipruto, and then I'm going to talk about understanding regenerative agriculture. In understanding regenerative agriculture, we did some research on how to collect information. You see in this picture, when the citizen science are interacting with the community to know what are their priorities in changing their lives, because the local government doesn't know what are the needs of the community. So in doing research, we go to the ground and then hear their views how to work about farming in order to get some proper food or proper diets, because people are only eating food without knowing that this food is good for them or is it healthy. So we go to the ground and ask people what they need, and then we advise the county government or the national government or on what should have to be done to the community. So in the regenerative agriculture, there is this issue of global warming. So a lot of trees has been cut in the forest, and then people are losing a lot of water. So we advise them on how to plant trees which are good for the environment. And then in doing so, when they are planting the trees, they have to till their farms without disturbing the soil so much, so that they can get some they cannot lose the soil in terms of soil erosion. Because if you cultivate in a slopy area, a lot of soil will be moved to the river, and then you will not get some crops from the soil again. So in doing that, when we do the regenerative agriculture, we plant some trees as well as the crops, and then in that crops, because people are using a lot of fertilizers and chemicals, and in so doing, when you use chemicals, you interfere with the life of the bees. So if you don't use chemicals, the bees will get some flowers, and then they will suck, and then you will create some bee hives like the one we have seen here. So it is in a regenerative area where people plant the trees so that they can harvest the honey from that bee hive, and then they will use it as to have food from that. And then in the ground, you see that there is some crops which are being grown. You harvest the crops, even the vegetables, as well as getting the honey from the beehive. Next there. So in that one, you see this is how people have moved from maybe growing potatoes to go to maybe coffee, planting coffee. And in planting coffee, you have some, when you plant the coffee, the farm, you plant even some beans as a cover crop so that it can control the soil erosion. And then when you are still waiting for the coffee to be ready, you still have some other crops to assist you in terms of food. So for these people to change from that transition of maybe cultivating land and leaving it fallow, it is very hard for them to change. You have to advise the county government on how to advise these people to change from that method of maybe tilling the land and have to do mulching and even crop rotation. So, and then when we plant the riparian lands with the trees, we'll be reducing the global warming by advising these people to plant more vegetation and then conserving the water so that we will be getting a lot of rain. Thank you. And then we have our team. I don't know. We have the citizen team. We have them in the field who will be assisting us. So those are our citizens team, PROCOL Kenya, PROCOL Africa in Kenya. We are working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So very different kinds of research challenge, very different kinds of research training. So we're running a little bit late, so I'm just going to hand straight over to Soraya Mia and Lorraine Owusu, who are going to introduce the next session.
Yeah.